Welcome to the 8th episode of the 5th series of the Women in CX podcast, a series dedicated to real talk conversations between women in customer experience. Listen in as we share our career stories, relive the moments that shaped us, and voice our opinions as loudly as we like about all manner of CX subjects. I'll be your host, Clare Muscutt, and in today's episode, I'll be talking to a remarkable community member from Australia. Let me introduce you to today's inspiring guest. She's a seasoned CX executive, having headed up customer advocacy functions for some of the world's most recognised brands, including Vodafone, Telstra and Suncorp, and is now the CEO of Senyah Projects, a business she founded to help businesses harness the power of their people to achieve their customer goals. Her focus is now on improving customer and employee advocacy as an enabler for organisational growth. Please welcome to the show, CX sister, Kristin Haynes. Hi, Kristin.
Hello, Claire.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, super good, super good. It's about 8 p.m. here at night, so I'll be ready for my glass of red.
Oh, nice. And whereabouts are you?
I'm in Sydney, and we've had a gorgeous day here today. So yeah, it's we're well and truly into summer, which has felt like it's been a long time coming.
I'm so jealous. It's like the bleak midwinter January in London. It's very grey and rainy and cold and frozen most of the time. So
No, well, we are. I think we started to think that early into December. We felt as though the rain was never going to go away. But come January, it seems to have come good.
amazing, amazing. So let's jump straight in then. Anyway, I'm sure the listeners would love to know a little bit more about how you found your way into women in CX and what you've been doing and getting out of being part of our community so far.
Yeah, look, I love the community. I think I'm now a couple of years in, and it's been fantastic. I uh, I I suppose the catalyst for me with getting involved with women in CX, um, I'd probably fallen out of love with customer experience.
I remember
I
our first conversation.
Yeah, I'd been into CX for 15 odd years, and I'd led some great teams and I'd worked with some great local brands and global brands. And I think I just got to a point where I knew why I got involved with CX, but I sort of felt as though I'd been pulled away from all the areas that I loved. Namely being a customer advocate and being able to measurably improve the customer experience. I didn't feel I was doing that anymore. And so I took a step back and I went back to study. After sort of 15 years in this area, I thought, oh, I might look at some formal study just to make sure that I am doing all the right things. And I went and I got my CCXP qualification, and that was again that was an interesting process. And I was then sort of looking for what's a group I can become involved with, which is collaborative, which is going to bring together people from all different walks of life. And I was looking for something which sort of felt authentic. And I think that's probably the word that springs to mind when I think about women in CX and the women who I've had the privilege of engaging with.
Yeah, it's a wonderful crew, isn't it? You've got two of our values in there. Authentic and
Yeah, no, they
collaborative.
really are. And I, you
Yeah.
know, I there's so many facets of what you've done, be it, the webinars, be it the articles that people write. There's just, and the caliber of the people who are all so accomplished in their individual fields. I've really enjoyed being a bit of a sponge, taking on board some fabulous tips and tricks along the way.
Yeah, well, it's been absolutely fabulous to have you, and thank you so much for all your contribution so far. And yeah, super excited to have this podcast. So I'm sure the listeners want to hear more about this career journey that you went on. So you said you kind of told us about the point at which you fell out of love. with customer experience a bit, because as we all do when we move into leadership, we get further and further away from the fun parts and more sitting in meetings and stuff, don't we? And now for a quick word from one of our sponsors. We are proud to be supported by Kantar, the world's leading evidence-based insight and consulting company. Kantar CX helps clients define customer and employee experience strategies, better understand their customers via measurement, and in turn improve business outcomes, driving true commercial ROI. To find out more about Kantar's CX practice, please visit the sponsor links on the homepage of womenincx.community. Now back to the episode. What was your career journey? Where did you start, and how have you ended up where you are today? Tell us more.
Yeah, look, all of my roles to date have really been with big brands. Straight out of uni, I started with Coca-Cola, and sort of started in a sales capacity and found my way into marketing. I then went on to work with Goodman Fielder, a company called Maxium, who were the distributor for Jim Beam and Absolute Vodka. And so I sort of very early in my career, I had great exposure to all these phenomenal brands. And I was probably about 25 when I joined Vodafone Australia. And I ended up doing 10 years with Vodafone, of which half of those were in the field of customer experience. So loved my years with Voda. They were an incredible company. They were sort of seen as the disruptor in the Australian marketplace, and I loved that. It had a fantastic culture and a real energy about it. And so yeah, loved my time there. But I left Vodafone and I went on and joined the competition, being Telstra, who were the number one player in town. Very different business. Incredible history, a real legacy in the Australian market. And I really enjoyed my 2 years with Telstra. I then went on to News Corp, and so into media, which was a new industry, again in the field of customer experience and employee experience. And so after nearly 4 years with News Corp, I was offered the opportunity to get involved with stadiums and entertainment centres. And so I joined a business called Venues New South Wales, which were a government entity, and I was brought on as their Chief Customer Officer. And look, incredibly exciting time. We were in the process of launching a new stadium, which was the first in 20 years. The first since we'd opened the Sydney Olympic Park for the Olympics back in 2000. So yeah, it was a great time, and I loved my time with Venues.
Wow. So FMCG, distribution, telecoms, media, and
Yeah.
events and stadiums and government services. Wow, that's an incredible set of experiences. What was one barrier or challenge you had to overcome to become the woman that you are today?
Yeah, probably the most recent one, Claire. And I know you and I talk about this with the challenges of being a solopreneur. I think there's so many stages on that solopreneur journey where you find yourself going, oh my goodness, corporate is so much easier. I understand that beast. I know how to navigate those corridors. I love the budgets available to do what I need to do. When you go out on your own, you lose all of that infrastructure. You lose that backing, as you and I discussed. You often lose those sounding boards. Those people who are able to say, actually, that's not a great idea. And then there's the practicalities of running the business. Learning. All of a sudden, you've gone from a salary appearing on the 15th of every month to, that level of uncertainty. And I think that's unsettling. So I think the greatest challenge you need to overcome is that ability to stop doubting yourself and to be able to get back on the horse day in, day out. Some days are harder than others. Some days you take some real knocks and you think, I don't know if I'll get back up from this one. but you do, and you have to keep backing yourself. And I think that's probably been the biggest personal and professional challenge.
Yeah, just for context, listeners, we had a little chat just before we started recording about some of the challenges of going from like 0 to year one to year 2 and into year 3, and just saying actually it feels like it just gets harder as things get bigger, things get more complicated. But absolutely the most resilience building job I've ever done has been as being self-employed. But there definitely are those moments where I think, oh, it'd be so much easier just to go back to corporate and have a full-time job where I go home at the end of the night and it's not my responsibility if the business fails or succeeds. But at the same time, like, there were a lot of reasons why I left corporate to do my own thing and be the master of my own customer experience, my own destiny, without any of the stakeholder challenges of differences of opinion. But it certainly is a set of trade-offs, isn't it? There's no perfect one, and just being able to balance out which feels more rewarding. But yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. It's very much character and resilience building. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I
so
think you're right. And uh, I think the other thing too, which I love about it, and when we talk about sort of getting back on the horse, and one of the things that I think sort of continues to inspire me is
mm,
some of the incredible people I've met along this journey.
mm,
And I must say, just people who, again, it's that entrepreneurial mindset. It's the hustle, the fact that you don't know what's around the corner, so
mm,
you've got to hustle. You've got to
yeah,
stay nimble. You've got to be
mm,
open to opportunities that you never had to in corporate land.
mm,
You were able to shut things down. You knew
mm,
what was going to make money. You
mm,
knew the ROI on every single
mm,
thing that you did.
mm.
There's a lot of uncertainty in our world, and I think part of the areas of that I've learned to love as I've gone along this journey is just some of the incredible individuals who inspire me, and keep me getting back up on those days where you think, wow, this is hard.
Yeah, it's this adaptability, isn't it, to whatever comes. And I think that's probably one of the single biggest assets I now have, is to be able to master uncertainty with adaptability. No, and to your point of backing yourself, needing to keep that belief that everything will turn out okay as long as you continue to pursue the vision and make good decisions along the way that line up with the values of what you set out to do. You can't really go wrong. Well, you probably can,
Yeah.
but being able to believe that in yourself and in your vision and your own leadership to be able to steer that course. And yes, and absolutely, and being part of our community and seeing all these incredible women who run their own businesses as solopreneurs or as founders, and women that have grown their businesses into agencies. I find so much inspiration from others too.
And I think you need that, Claire. I think you need
Yeah.
that nourishment.
Mm.
And that's, I think, certainly what the Women in CX community provides. It's that watering of the garden,
Yes.
so that, we can get up the next day and do it all again.
Yeah, keep getting back on that horse. Absolutely. Um, so one of the amazing contributions you made to the community was recently coming and doing a webinar. Would you like to tell the listeners a little bit more about what your webinar was about?
Yeah. Look, after I left Venues New South Wales, so I'd been with them for a couple of years. I was approached by a business called Capability Co. And this was probably my first interaction with a startup. As I said, with my career journey, I really only knew sort of big business and big brands. But Capability Co. were doing something which, from day one, I was just so bought into. And what their basic premise is all about is they partner with a body called the Institute for Working Futures. And the Institute for Working Futures has carried out a large body of research into what the future of work is going to be. And there's a lot of unknowns. We've got the emergence of all these new roles. They're actually called sort of new collar and green collar. And the fascinating thing is, at a very broad level, we know sort of what these roles are going to be. We know
Yeah,
in the green area.
Yeah, I was going to say, for just for the listeners' benefit, do you want to explain new collar and green collar, those
Yeah,
types of roles?
absolutely. So look, the new collar is really focused in this data analytics, AI, machine learning. These are sort of not new roles, but I think we're really just on the cusp of what this could turn into. And that's the piece that we don't know. What's that evolution going to be? What are the roles that take AI and data analytics? What are they going to look like in 5 and 10 years? We don't know that. We've just got a little bit of a sense. And then we talk about green collar, and we talk about areas such as sustainability, and obviously there's a real focus on social purpose and what businesses are doing to make sure that they are having a responsible footprint, and that they're being very mindful of their impact on communities and the people who work for them. So I think we're seeing a change in potentially what the future of work is going to look like. And so the essence of what Capability Co are not, I was going to say promoting, but I don't even think it's a promotion. The essence of what they are trying to educate business around is the need to shift from a focus on jobs as the capability. So jobs and your job title and what it is that you do, this has always been the focus. And for people like you and I, Claire, who come from a corporate background, jobs are what gave us our identity. I think we're seeing a shift to more of what is the innate human capabilities that are going to make us effective employees, effective solopreneurs, effective founders. What are those core human capabilities? And to give you an example of what we're talking about here, we're talking skills like creativity, innovation, and then obviously close to both of our hearts, customer focus. And the idea is that regardless of the role that you find yourself in 5 or 10 years' time, these human capabilities, which also include leadership, these are going to be relevant regardless of what your job title is. And so Capability Co are working with a number of large corporates within Australia, and they're rolling out the human capability standards. And this is ensuring that their people are going to be skilled for the workforce of tomorrow. And it's super exciting, super exciting.
Yeah, 'cause I remember thinking when you did your webinar, like, we didn't get taught that stuff at school, but does that mean that people will get taught this stuff at school in Australia in the future?
Well, we hope so.
Wow.
I think at the moment we're very much again on the cusp, and Capability Co are working with the sort of the corporate end of town, but they also have a really exciting trial underway with high schools. And this is about identifying, even at that high school level, what are your natural human capabilities? So if you think back to yourself, Claire, in year 10 at school.
Long time ago.
But what were you sort of thinking about the future? No doubt you were sitting there going, oh God, I'm probably not great at science. I don't know if maths is my thing. And so you found yourself pigeonholed into this little box where potentially you didn't know what the future looked like, because there was this set curriculum that you were sort of being pushed through, and you were going to be spat out at the other end with this nice little number that apparently determined your future worth in the
Yeah.
employment market.
Yeah, it's
And I
crazy.
think it just undervalues people. And so, again, I think what the human capability standards do a great job of doing, and I hope they will be able to do it for a number of 14 and 15-year-olds out there who might be considering leaving school because they feel as though they don't fit. The
Mm,
human capability standards are going to allow them to identify, are they natural leaders? Are
mm,
they naturally creative? Are they naturally innovative? What are some of their core skills? And
mm,
therefore, what might be the career path that they might take that will build on that sort of innate core capability?
This is music to my ears, because I was a girl with ADHD when it wasn't very well understood, and that traditional kind of learning approach, exams, coursework, traditional subjects, just it was really difficult. And I think there was like pressure to conform. So I was actually good at science until A level. It got very, very hard. But like if I could go back now, like I wouldn't have chosen subjects like physics and German and like these really kind of like technically difficult, very deep learning subjects. If I could do business, if I could have done business, if I could have done psychology, if I could have done that kind of thing, I would have flourished for sure.
Yeah,
But it wasn't like the traditional path to get into a red brick university. And I went a very squiggly way to a red brick university in the end, where I failed my A levels pretty much. I got like 1 C in English literature because I like that. The other subjects I basically flunked, or they got really bad grades, and I couldn't get into a red brick university straight out of the bat. So I ended up going to equine college and studying horses because that was my passion. And that degree came with business management and marketing, and I'd never done any of that at school or at college, like the senior level. And I just discovered like I had this like real flair for like learning about marketing, and eventually got a 2-1, and it got me into this red brick University of Birmingham. But like it was not a straight path for me to do that.
yeah.
And I just find that so amazing that like if people are going to be educated and recognized for these innate human capabilities that aren't necessarily like the traditional approaches to learning, I think it's going to open up the world for so many more neurodiverse people to succeed and be happier and feel more part of it than I certainly
I
did.
couldn't agree more. Yep. And I think,
Um,
Claire, I mean, your story, you had a lot of grit to, go that squiggly path that you did.
mm,
So many kids don't. And
mm,
I think they become disillusioned, and, they drop out at year 10. They're not
mm,
really sure, what they're good at. And
mm,
so I think that the human capability standards will provide young people with some much needed direction,
mm,
and a little bit of hope that
mm.
they do have these skills, and therefore they can be successful in a multiple of different areas. And I think that's I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, and it was white collar, wasn't it? People who code and work in that kind of space. Is that white collar? Like, what was the word? What
Tradition, yes,
tr
yeah, they're sort of the future white collar roles.
future
Yeah,
white collar roles? Yeah.
yeah.
Because for me, I think there's something really important about gender dynamics there, because today only 12% of people that work in AI are women. So that kind of like STEM development, artificial intelligence stream is still a very male dominated industry. And I think for customer experience, especially, we need to get more women working in that space, because that is the way that customer experience of the future is also going. So like, again, heartened to hear that this is going to be happening at grassroots level, where there is a 50-50 balance before they get to the point of having to choose those subjects and choose careers, and hopefully that helped to balance things out a bit more.
Oh,
Because I think,
I hope so, and I
yeah,
think there's probably that an equal mix of sort of, you know, bottom up with speaking to them at that school level,
yeah,
but also top down
educating,
at that corporate company level. And
mm,
we are seeing a shift there too. You know,
yeah,
even in Australia, we've got, you know, one of our largest supermarket chains, Woolworths. You know, they're spending $50 million on putting over 60,000 of their employees through learning and development focused programs, specifically centered around data analytics, AI, automation, you know, because they're recognizing that these are the skills of the future. And so, you know, ideally, we are going to address some of that gender gap through programs like that as well.
yeah. Oh, I loved Woolies. So I used to work in supermarkets. So whenever I travelled, I'd always go and visit all the different supermarkets. But yeah, I really enjoyed Woolies and Coles, isn't it?
It is
In
our two
Australia.
big guys.
Yeah, amazing. So let's just dive a little bit deeper into the kind of this employee aspect then. So, you know, kind of came up through customer experience. Now you're in a world where you're much more focusing on employees and capabilities. What is your perspective on employee experience? What are the key, most important things to get right in that space?
Yeah, I think I was probably quite lucky in all of my respective customer experience roles in that they always had a cultural
Mm,
employee experience component to them.
mhm,
So I consider myself quite lucky that in every role, my leader in the business got that we needed to connect our employees with the customer. And if employees didn't get it, and if employees weren't on the bus
mm,
around the need to have a customer focus,
mm,
then our customer experience efforts were never going to be
mm,
successful.
mhm,
So
mhm,
accordingly, as part of my strategy, there was always a strong employee component. And look, even sometimes, you know, that was a little bit removed from customer experience. You know, during my time working with one of the large telcos, I led a program which was a coaching program. So we put 500 of our most senior leaders in the business through a program which really had, you know, two core objectives: teaching them to be vulnerable
mhm,
and to
mm,
recognize the importance of coaching in their day-to-day roles, and then secondly, teaching them to be courageous and to have the tough conversations with people that sometimes they may have veered away from. And the view is that if our leaders in the business could show that vulnerability and be equally courageous, then they earned their right to be a leader.
mm,
And I think that was quite a momentous program for this particular organisation that was traditionally quite hierarchical. And, you know, people were simply, you know, in the top jobs because they were in the top jobs. And, you know, nobody questioned, you know, whether, you know, they were effective as leaders. This business, as I said, they turned that a bit on its head, and it said, you know, in order to be a leader in this business, you need to be an effective coach. And
mm,
so I think that was a very powerful program, which obviously had flow on effects to a large number of employees in the
mm.
business who now felt that their dynamic with their leader was
Change.
changed
Mm,
because their leader had now learnt these skills that
mm.
some may have possessed before, some didn't. But their leaders now had these skills which allowed them to be more effective leaders.
Yeah, it is such an important skill as well, isn't it? And like the transformation that can come from coaching others to find the answer for themselves, and the growth and development at all levels, when that is a skill that leaders possess, is infinite
Yeah,
possibility, isn't it? But the traditional dominant command and control management approaches to leadership can be very stifling. And I think, you know, back to that earlier point about the younger generation are looking for different things from their experience of work. They're looking for opportunities where they can be themselves, be authentic, show up to work, be fully embraced. Like, unless the leaders within that business can role model that and show that, the top talent of the future is not going to stay with those businesses. So
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
yeah, and just kind of back to that gender dynamic thing again. I know it wouldn't be Women in CX podcast if I don't talk about the the female aspect, but like, women leaders tend to lead in a more collaborative way, where aspects such as coaching are more highly valued. There's a longer term view of even learning and development versus typically men. I'm not saying all men and women think this way, but this is the research that suggests that this is the difference in how people think and lead at a senior level, is more short term for men. It's more focused on numbers, and it's more focused on delivering those numbers in the shorter term. So when it comes to like investing in people, investing in capabilities and skills, I think there's probably no coincidence that a lot of the C-suite HR directors are actually women.
Yeah.
And being able to get that through. So I think kind of through the course of all of this, it's, you know, being able to have that equal representation, isn't it, of women in those roles that are going to affect the future, in those leadership positions that can ensure that the employee experience is one that the future generation and talent are going to be equally valued and be able to achieve their full potential. And yeah, like I just feel like there's definitely a connection there, and I'm just so
Look,
happy.
I do, I agree with you. I think too, and this is a good thing, when I look at some of the, what I call the new age companies, I'm probably not seeing the divide to the extent that I did in the kind of companies that you and I,
Back in the day.
did our time with, so sort of, without sort of picking on, but be it a Coca-Cola or a Telstra, these are large companies with a lot of history, and when you think about employee experience, and you sort of think about the three levers that generally you have to pull, so which is generally environmental, it's cultural, and then we're looking at the tools, and are we giving the people the tools that they need to do the job we've asked them to do. I don't necessarily think those levers have changed. I think they're still the key levers, but I think the approach that particularly these new companies are taking with respect to those three levers, that's where we're seeing a fundamental shift. So let's look at the environment one for a second. I think 10, 20 years ago, a lot of the big companies recognized that it was a good thing to have a nice office. People want to have somewhere that's nice to go to, and so they built some big, beautiful offices, and and we had some lovely, we had some lovely offices out there. I'm sort of fascinated by we have an exciting new office building going up in Sydney, from Atlassian. So you'd be familiar with sort of an Australian success story, which is the Atlassian boys and what they've created. So currently under construction is a $1 billion tower.
Wow.
Which is
Atlassian
just sort
tower.
of which is next level, and this really is a thing of beauty. And they were recently asked whether the project would still continue based on the degree to which they have embraced flexible working. And they really have a very clear principle, and they're open with all of their staff that you do not need to be in the office. And so they were questioned around whether, this $1 billion investment would still go ahead in light of this flexibility policy. And their answer was very much that they want to cater to the different audiences within their business.
Mm.
And they want to make sure that for those who want to come into the office, that they have a beautiful office which encourages, collaboration and innovative thinking. And for those that want to work from home, well, they can work from home. So going back to this environmental lever, it's no longer this idea of, let's create this space and everyone's now going to rock up at 9 o'clock in the morning and, we're going to have a nice space for them to work. The idea is more about we now recognise that all of our employees are different. And for those who want to be in the office, haven't we got a fantastic space for you? For those of you who don't, what tools can we put around you that will allow you to be equally as effective?
And there's a lot of work going on in workplace experience design now. I know a colleague, I
Massive.
think she's in Australia actually, Sue Lim. Like that's the specialty of her company now, is like designing workplace experiences from like the building aspects, and then interfacing with how does that work in an omni-channel sense. And I think it's fascinating that, this is a world that we pioneered in customer experience, but it's absolutely applicable now in employee experience from a design point of view. And just a side point, I guess, about this like working from home thing. So I think, we were born in a generation where it was the office or nothing, right? So this working from home was a luxury, and remote working or hybrid working now just makes total sense, doesn't it, to us? But I've got a young team. They came straight out of university during the pandemic and came straight to work for me in a fully remote job role. They've never known anything different than that. They've never had that experience of working in an office. And I was talking to one of our younger members yesterday who also graduated at that time and went to work for a company in London, and she is so bored of like working from home. She wants to be in the office environment. So I think, what you say about this Atlassian example is totally true. It's being able to cater for the different needs of different people at different stages of their careers, of their lives, and the best companies will enable people to work however they want to work and in whatever way best suits them, not the other way around. And there are undoubtedly benefits for women, especially from being able to work from home and hybrid, in terms of their career development, because if they don't have to like leave early for things like school runs and get the bias that they encounter, I think, it's a really powerful tool to enable more women to achieve even greater things with less bias.
No,
Being able to have
I
that
couldn't agree more.
flexibility. Yeah.
Yep. And
So
I
you said
think,
that, so that's lever number one is environment. What was
yep.
lever number two?
Well,
Culture.
that's the culture.
Culture, yeah.
So this is coming down to, what is the culture that we're going to create in this business of ours, which is going to allow people to thrive. And again, I think culture has always existed. I think the lens that was traditionally taken is how can we create a culture that will allow people to achieve their KPIs. So it was more about the business and what have we got to do, what policies have we got to put in place, what sort of frameworks, what are we going to do that allow someone to be effective in their role. I think when we look at culture now, we're seeing such a shift toward, well-being and, mental health and the programs that I'm seeing come out. So I was a judge on the International Customer Experience Awards last year, and one of the categories that I was judging in was employee experience, and I was blown away by some of the initiatives that people are working on, and again, particularly in this startup space, so much innovation. And I even look at some of our sort of local success stories and what we're doing in this space. So we have a business out here called Safety Culture, founded in 2004. They're now a $1 billion business. I love Safety Culture because the bloke who actually founded it was in Townsville, where I did a little bit of time in far north Queensland. But this business is such a success story. And one of the things I love about it is, when they talk about sort of employee benefits, and, they have a great, they have a great office set up, going back to environment. And I love the fact that they create different rooms in their office which bring their customers to life. So, i.e., they might have, for want of an example, Toyota might be a customer. So here's their Toyota room. They might have New South Wales Transport as a customer. So here's their New South Wales Transport room. So again, going back to this idea of how can you create a space which people find value and makes them want to come into the office, then I think culture safety, safety culture have done a phenomenal job. But the reason I highlight them is, again, speaking about sort of innovative practices and something as simple as leave. They offer leave to support victims of domestic violence.
Wow.
They offer leave for women who have suffered miscarriages. These are really innovative programs, which, traditionally, this was not a space that, corporates played in. I think even when you sort of put in for sick leave, the drop-down box to say what you actually were applying for was optional. It was a little bit of a sort of ask no questions, hear no lies. I think, the startups are doing a really good job around trying to be transparent and encourage people to bring their whole self to the office. And in turn, they're developing policies and procedures which reward someone bringing their whole self. And that includes, if you are facing some mental health challenges. So I think they're one example of a company that, is, setting the new benchmark around what, in particularly, young people who might be new to the workforce. This, in my mind, is going to be the expectation. I think the likes of flexible working, again, it's going to become table stakes.
Yeah.
I look at companies, another success story, again, an Australian-based business called Indebted. And you'll love what they did, Claire, if you're not familiar with the business. They fundamentally overhauled the whole approach to debt collection. So if we think about, the hideous images that spring to mind of a couple of heavies turning up on your doorstep and knocking, because you haven't paid such and such. Indebted's whole premise was sort of injecting the human element into debt collection. Understanding what was going on for people, using machine learning so that they could understand more about their customers. And, they use tools like WhatsApp and email in order to be able to engage with customers. And funnily enough, they have nearly 90% of debts repaid without actually a person-to-person engagement. And again, incredibly successful company, but 100% remote workforce. As of last year, they introduced a 4-day working week. Again, might not be for everyone, but the reason that they introduced it is because they said, we've listened to our people. A number of our people have said they're experiencing burnout. They haven't got the work-life balance that they want. So again, you told us, we listened, and this is now an option that we can put on the table. So again, I think we're going to see more and more of these, and I think it's probably easier as a startup. You're able to get it right from the get-go. I think, again, for these legacy companies, like a Sainsbury's, there's a lot of legacy processes and systems, and it can make it very difficult to turn the ship.
Yeah.
I think for a young company, it is easier to get it right from the get-go.
Yeah, especially culture, and to change culture is almost impossible if it's been there for a long time, because it took such a long time to create in the first place in those big companies. I'm just conscious of the time now. We're like almost out. Quickly, what was the
we
third?
We know how to chat, Claire.
We do, don't we? What was the third lever? So we've done environment, culture.
The third lever is tools.
Tools, right? Okay,
Absolutely. So are you, and I
job.
think when we talk tools, I think you can look at the sort of the traditional tools of, are we allowing, people to be effective in their roles? And again, if we talk about, again, using Atlassian, they have their fabulous tool being Jira, which took project management to a whole nother level. I think there's that side, and technology has a role to play. But I also love when we talk tools. We've got a number of companies here in Australia. They offer their employees, 12-month subscriptions to mindfulness apps. So, as someone, Claire, I know you sort of mentioned, the importance of meditation in your world. How great is it that, someone joining a company, that they're offered the Calm app.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. So that was an amazing conversation about human-centric businesses. I think, the thing that's overlapped throughout all these parts of our conversation has been about, it's not about customer or employee experience even in the future, is it? It's about human experience, and those businesses that really understand people, whether that's from a customer, employee, or stakeholder point of view, are the ones that are going to be best placed to succeed. And managing the three key levers of culture, environment, and tools for their people within the organization, no doubt, with that customer focus, it's going to be a much better world. And fantastic to hear how Australia is leading the way, and definitely going to dig more into that Atlassian case study. So just final words, is there like one piece of advice or a key takeaway you'd like to leave the Women in CX podcast listeners with today, Kristin?
Look, I'd love to see more and more women taking up the customer experience mantle. And if there's one thing that I've sort of learnt, over the last 2 years since, running the customer focused program, and often I'll have, 200 people on a masterclass, and none of them come from a customer experience background. But I love the fact that they get to the end of it and they say, oh, this is fabulous. I can make a real difference here. And, I never thought about customer experience, as a career. And so I think for anyone listening on the call, and who isn't already operating in a CX or an EX capacity, by no means underestimate the journey that you've been on and the value that you can add in this space, because my experiences has certainly taught me that it's from people, from all walks of life and a mixture of different disciplines who really are making a difference in this space.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Kristin, for coming on the podcast today. It's been amazing to hang out with you. I've really enjoyed this. And just left with lots of thoughts around the future of diverse and inclusive workspaces being driven as a result of this human capability point of view. So thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Women in CX podcast with me, Clare Muscutt. If you enjoyed the show, please drop us a like, subscribe, and leave a review on whichever platform you're listening or watching on. And if you want to know more about becoming a member of the world's first online community for women in customer experience, please check out womenincx.community. Join us again next time, where I'll be talking to one of our community members from the United States about brand, marketing, and the holistic view of customer experience. See you again soon.